Burn him! Burn the fatherless one! He brought the drought upon us all.
They threw him into the flames and danced around the fire screaming, but the fire refused to burn him. And that was the worst mistake this village ever made. Long before the accusation and the exile, there was a forge. And inside that forge stood a woman whose hands knew fire the way most people know their own name. Wara sold the sharpest blades and the finest copper jewelry in the whole region. Her work spoke for itself even when the village refused to listen.
A woman at the anvil steals bread from every man in this village.
But skill does not protect you when tradition decides you do not belong. Every night, Wara stood alone in the forge, hearing the silence where respect should have been. Then one evening, with no cloud in the sky and no wind on the ground, a bolt of white fire split the heavens and struck the forge directly. The villagers found Wara standing in the flames, untouched and weeping. Something had entered her that night, something ancient and burning and alive. 9 months later, in the darkest hour before dawn, Wara brought a child into the world alone. The moment the baby cried, every forge fire in the village died at once.
The gods sent you to me. I do not know why, but I will protect you.
She wrapped the baby tight and walked toward the door. She already knew what was coming. She had known since the night the lightning spoke. By morning, the whispers had already become shouts. Kale and Hakan stood beneath the village tree, pointing toward her home like men aiming a weapon.
She bore a child with no father. The ancestors are angry. That is why the fires died.
My son is not cursed, and I am no witch. I have served this village 20 years.
Wara, you must leave. The village has decided. If you stay, I cannot protect you.
Wara walked into the forest without turning back. She carried her baby in a single bundle. 20 years of service repaid with stones in silence. Ndaye watched from the edge of the village with both hands pressed to her chest. She wanted to follow, but fear held her feet to the ground. Kale walked into the empty forge and ran his hand across the cold anvil. He believed he had won. He did not yet know what he had just set in motion.
The forge belongs to real men now, as it always should have.
Wara built a fire pit from river stones and a shelter from branches and broad leaves. She would raise this child in the forest if the village would not have them. That first night beneath the ancient tree, Wara held the baby and cried silently toward the sky, not from weakness, from the weight of knowing what the world would do to her son. Months became years. Wara learned to hunt and plant and build. She turned exile into a life. The forest became home because she refused to let it become a grave. She taught the boy to forge. His small hands gripped the hammer, and sparks flew from the metal like stars being born. He had the gift. It lived inside his blood.
Mama, why did the people throw stones at us? I never hurt anyone.
Because people fear what they do not understand. And fear makes good people do terrible things.
The boy discovered the fire lived in his palms. A small flame hovered between his cupped hands, reflected in the clear water below. Wonder and fear shared the same breath.
The fire must always stay inside you, unless you need it to protect someone.
Sometimes at sunset, the boy stood at the forest edge and looked toward the village he had never seen. He did not know the people there, but he felt the pull. At night in the small shelter, Wara held a piece of copper she had forged long ago. The boy leaned against her shoulder, already half asleep. This was everything, and it was almost enough. The boy grew fast in the forest. He ran through the green trails with an eagle soaring just above him, keeping pace. The bird had chosen him and would not leave. He found the eagle wounded by a hunter arrow near the stream. He held the bird gently and felt warmth pass from his hands into the broken wing. The wound closed slowly beneath his fingers.
You are healed now. You can go.
The eagle refused to leave. From that day it followed the boy everywhere, perched on his shoulder, watching the world through one golden eye. Something old had recognized something older.
That is the eagle of the thunder god. The old spirit is with you, my son.
I am the son of the thunder god. That is not a question, Mama.
Yes. The lightning came to my forge that night. A voice said you would heal what men have burned.
That night the boy stood under the full moon with a steady flame hovering above each palm. He was not afraid anymore. He understood now. The fire was not a curse. It was an inheritance. At 18, Obi stood taller and broader than most men. His arms were the arms of a forgeron. His eyes still burned amber orange, and his hammer sang on iron the way his mother had taught him. Mother and son stood together at the forest edge, looking toward the distant village. The pull was stronger now. Something was calling him back to the place that had tried to erase him.
The village is dying, Mama. I have to go back.
They threw stones at a baby. Now you are a man with fire in your hands. They will not just chase you this time.
I am not the baby who did not understand anymore. I am ready, Mama.
Wara cried, not because she wanted to stop him, because she knew she could not. He was ready, and the truth of that broke her heart and made her proud at the same time.
Then I come with you.
They walked together on the cracked, dry road toward the village. The earth was parched, and the trees were bare. 18 years of drought had stripped the land to bone. The eagle circled above. The village gates stood open and unguarded. Inside the huts were crumbling and the gardens were dust. The well was dry. The animals were thin. Fear and pride had starved this place from the inside.
I am Wara. I lived here 18 years ago. This is my son. We came to help.
You! I had you thrown out 18 years ago. How dare you return here?
Because your village is dying. And I came to help it live.
Seize him! Bring him to the fire of judgment! Tonight the village decides his fate.
They bound his wrists with thick rope. He could have burned them all. Instead, he looked at the hungry children watching from the doorways and let the men tie him without a fight.
Mama. Trust me.
They threw him into the judgment fire. The flames roared 10 feet high and swallowed him completely. But inside the fire, Obi stood calm as the ropes burned away and his hands opened toward the sky. A single tongue of flame rose from the fire and coiled around his forearm like a living thing. Then at a motion of his hand, it vanished. The fire obeyed him because the fire was family. Obi stepped out of the wall of flame without a mark on his skin. The eagle descended and landed on his shoulder. The villagers fell back in silence. What they had tried to destroy had just proven itself holy. Kale stood frozen. The spear had fallen from his hand. His shoulders caved inward. The man who had ruled this village through fear was now drowning in it. Obi walked slowly toward Kale. Not running, not threatening, just walking. And with every step, the distance between power and truth grew smaller, until there was nowhere left to hide. Kale fell to his knees. The dust rose around him. His head dropped. The man who had never bent for anyone broke under the weight of his own cruelty, finally seen in full daylight.
I was wrong. I judged a man on his birth and not on his deeds. I used the fear of others to do things I should have refused. And I have not slept one full night since.
You were very wrong. But you said it yourself. And that counts for something.
Obi turned his face toward the sky, the bonfire behind him, the kneeling village around him, and above him the black clouds gathering where there had been nothing but empty sky for 18 years.
Father, I am here. I am alive. And I forgive this village.
Not because forgiveness was earned easily, but because the drought punishes children who did nothing wrong.
A girl stood at the edge of the crowd clutching a small clay cup. Her eyes were wider than the moon. She had never seen anything like this, and she would never forget it. Obi knelt at the center of the village and pressed both hands flat against the cracked earth. A warm, golden glow spread from his palms outward through the fractures in the ground like veins of light. The glow pushed deeper. The ground trembled softly. Moisture rose through the ancient cracks as the heat in his hands reached down and woke the water that had been sleeping far below the surface. Umi leaned over the dry well and heard it first, a deep rumble rising from far below. Then the shock in her eyes as the first surge of clear water burst upward from the darkness. The well overflowed. Water poured over the stone rim and pooled on the cracked ground. Umi stumbled back with both hands pressed to her mouth. 18 years of drought ending in a single moment.
The water came back. The water came back.
The sky opened. Gentle rain began to fall through the firelight like golden sparks. Obi stood slowly with the water running down his face, and exhaustion giving way to quiet relief. The land was drinking again. Wara stood in the rain with her face turned toward the sky. Tears and rain ran together down her cheeks. She had waited 18 years for this moment. 18 years of silence finally answered. Fenno stood in the rain with both arms open and the tears falling freely. The village chief who had sent a mother into exile now stood in the mercy of the son he had failed to protect.
Stay. Become the forgeron of this village. Teach our children what you know.
I will stay. But under two conditions. No child born in this village will ever be cast out for having no known father. Every child is sacred.
The law is dead. I swear it on the ancestors.
And any woman who knows the forge will work without shame. No man will look down on her skill again.
It is just.
Obi stood at the new forge, bringing the hammer down on glowing iron. The sparks flew like stars. The eagle watched from above. He was building something that would outlast every lie ever told about him. Umi held a forged hoe in the sunlight, turning the blade slowly. The metal carried a warmth that did not fade. Every tool Obi made held a piece of the fire that lived inside him. Obi knelt to place a small hammer in the hands of a girl who had never been told she could forge. The look in her eyes said everything words could not. Permission changes a life.
If the fire did not burn you, then every mean thing they said about you was a lie.
Talia spoke with the raw honesty only a child carries. Her words hit harder than any blow Obi had ever taken at the anvil. Sometimes truth needs no power behind it. It just needs a clear voice. Kale carried water to the elders every morning. That was his sentence. Not death, not exile, service. Every jug he lifted reminded him of the man he had tried to destroy since birth. Sometimes Kale stopped on the path and stared at the water in his hands. He saw his own reflection, and in that reflection he saw every choice that had led him here. That memory never left. Ndaye sat in her garden, touching the flowers that now bloomed where dust had been. The village was green again. The children were fed. The woman who had been too afraid to follow Wara could finally breathe. Obi walked through green fields at golden hour with Umi beside him. The crops grew tall and healthy. The tools worked as if the earth welcomed them. Quiet days built on honest hands. At dusk, Obi sat outside the forge with the hammer across his knees, and the eagle sleeping above. The village was alive around him. He had found his place not by force, but by choosing to stay when he had every right to leave.
When I carried you inside me, I was so afraid. I knew the people would never understand.
We suffered. Yes. But look around.
Mother and son sat together outside the forge, watching the village they had rebuilt. Stars appeared above green gardens in warm lamplight. Everything the world had taken from them, they had given back to the world tenfold. Inside the forge, Obi reached into the fire and let the flames dance between his fingers. The fire did not burn. It never had. It recognized him the way a river recognizes rain.
The man they tried to burn became the one who keeps them warm.
Wara took the warm hand emerging from the fire. It did not burn her. She held on tightly. A mother holding the hand of the son the world had tried to take from her. Still here, still warm, still unbroken.
And that is the most beautiful story in the world.
At dawn, Obi stood at the center of the village with a gentle flame above each palm and the eagle circling in the golden sky. The man they had thrown into the fire now stood as the light that held the village together. Mother and son stood together with the eagle on his shoulder and the golden sky behind. They had walked into the forest with nothing. They had walked back with everything, and they had earned every single step. Every blade Obi forged carried a faint inner warmth that never fully cooled. His tools did not break and his metal did not rust. The fire that lived in his blood lived in everything he made. Umi worked the soil with a forged hoe, and the earth opened easily as if it wanted to help. The tools of a man who had been called cursed now fed an entire village. That is what real power looks like. Indaya turned a new copper bracelet in the sunlight. It glowed with a warmth that had nothing to do with the sun. She smiled. Sometimes the most sacred things come wrapped in the simplest metal. Every morning without fail, Kale carried water to those who could not carry it themselves. No one forced him anymore. He did it now because the weight of the jug was lighter than the weight of forgetting. Sometimes Kale stopped and looked at his own reflection in the water. The face staring back carried every choice he had ever made. Some reflections you cannot look away from, no matter how many years pass. Obi watched the girl bring a small hammer down on warm metal for the first time. The sparks flew. The girl grinned. A door that had been locked for generations had just opened, and it would never close again. At twilight, Obi stood on the hilltop with the eagle on his arm and the village glowing below. He had come from nothing. He had been called cursed. He had walked through fire, and he was still standing. Mother and son sat together outside the forge in the quiet night. The fire glowed gently behind them. No words were needed. Some bonds do not require language. They only require presence. Obi sat alone in the warm glow, with the hammer across his thighs and the amber eyes half closed. Peace is not the absence of pain. It is what remains after pain has taught you everything it came to teach. At dawn, with a gentle flame above each palm, and the eagle circling above Obi, stood as proof that what the world tries to destroy does not always die. Sometimes it comes back stronger and kinder than before. You are watching this story right now, and maybe a part of it feels familiar. Maybe you have been the one thrown into the fire. Maybe you have been the one who stayed silent when you should have spoken. The truth about cruelty is that it always circles back, and the truth about kindness is exactly the same. What you plant in another person grows whether you watch it or not. You cannot escape your own seeds. So here is the question that matters. When you look at the people around you right now, the ones who are different, the ones who are strange, the ones who do not fit, what are you planting in them? The first truth is this. Never judge a person by where they came from. Judge them by what they do when they have every reason to be cruel, and choose mercy instead. The second truth, silence in the face of injustice is not peace, it is permission. If you see wrong and say nothing, you have chosen a side, and it is not the right one. The third truth: what you try to destroy may be the very thing that was sent to save you. The village tried to burn its own salvation. Do not make the same mistake with the people in your life. If this story touched something inside you today, then do one thing for me. Press that subscribe button right now. It costs you nothing, but it means everything to this channel. Hit the like button. Leave a comment below. Tell me which moment hit you the hardest. I read every single one, and your words shape the next story I tell. Share this video with one person who needs to hear it today. You know someone. You thought of them just now. Send it. That small act of reaching out might change more than you realize. Turn on the notification bell so you never miss a story. Every week I bring you something new, something real, something that stays with you after the screen goes dark. If you have a story of your own, a time you were judged unfairly, a time you forgave when you had every right not to, put it in the comments. This space belongs to you. Thank you for staying until the very end. Thank you for caring enough to watch. The fact that you are still here right now tells me something important about who you are.
Hey.
The man they threw into the fire became the light that kept the whole village alive. Remember that, especially on the days when the world tries to convince you that you are not enough. You are.